Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast, where we look to empower and encourage real conversations amongst men everywhere by unpacking topics on self-growth, philosophy, and business. Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast. I'm your host today, Justin Bourne. We are discussing some really interesting topics over the last couple of weeks, and today is another ripper. I am obviously hosting, so I brought the drink. I'll go into the drink before we just talk about the topic. I've brought a Hibiki Suntory whiskey, Japanese whiskey. I've been really enjoying whiskey of late because of this podcast, so thank you.
Has it been making you happy?
Very happy. It makes me very happy. So I forgot to mention that we're welcomed by everyone today. So welcome.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Howdy.
Let's have a cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, hello.
In our fantastic whiskey glasses.
Oh yeah, because they all got smashed.
Do we all get the right pour? It's really
That you got
You
ripped
get the
off.
left paw. Would you like mine?
The bottle is right there, so feel free to help yourself through today's episode. I have decided to bring a topic that has been influenced by quite a few people in this group, which I would like to hope they're excited about. This wraps a little bit of everything, so I would like to talk about why we should pursue greatness/excellence. I've openly talked about, and I think a few of us talked about over episodes of the last season, of a little bit of a fear of success. And I was really intrigued lately by getting into a bit of Kobe Bryant. We talked about him with the letters to the form of selves a few episodes ago, and he recently released his latest business venture, which was a book called the Wizard series. And I haven't been a big sports fan growing up or a basketball fan, and so I didn't really fully appreciate him when he kind of released this. So I went a bit of a binge watch and was like, damn. And then when I looked back at everything that we look at, there's obviously a theme of kind of pursuing greatness and excellence. And because of this, I guess, fear of success that I've experienced of late, what this got me thinking was, like, why should we pursue greatness, and why should we pursue excellence? And when I went to research for this and just literally typed that question into Google, which was inspired by a few conversations that we've had of late, and Mike, you've been a bit of influence of this, asking the questions, right? So why pursue greatness? There was nothing really that popped up into Google. Like, obviously, this is a bit of an interesting question. I came across a few TED Talks and bits and pieces, and a lot of them lean towards more coming from the self-help industry, which is, we've talked about before as well. And there wasn't kind of any other real conversation other than it just seems that we should all strive to pursue great. Like, it's just this kind of seems to be this thing. Anyway, that obviously led down a different route, which started with going across some philosophy. I found some really great philosophy videos that was trying to explain greatness and our innate ability and why it's important. And so through watching some of these videos, it brought up some of the more famous philosophers, Carl Jung, Nietzsche, some of the Stoic philosophers, all the way, starting from the Greek times and Roman times. And they obviously have tried to tackle this question before, and they've also stemmed from a little bit of like why we exist and meaning of life and purpose and all of that jazz. One of the most interesting concepts that kind of came through looking into this was that we as humans, there's this paradox where we have this kind of fear of death and we have this fear of life. And it really resonated with me when I heard this, because the fear of life was the fear of success, which is what we've talked about before. We all have a fear of death, I think, in some aspects. And like, to me, that was a little bit of a wow moment. Okay, this is why we don't maybe pursue greatness, was the first kind of realization that started to come through and started to really connect with me. What also came out of this research was kind of like, what does it mean to exist? And the definition of exist, apparently in a Latin sense, means to step out or to stand forth, emerge, or appear. And there's a common theme throughout anyone who's achieved greatness or excellence, is that they are a bit of a lone wolf, and they do have to step out, and they've gone through suffering. They've been they end up being a bit of a loner of some sorts. People, haters want to bring them down. Everyone criticizes them. They have to go through so much, trials and tribulation and pain to achieve this greatness. So, what I'm super curious about, there's two parts to this. Is like, I also feel like greatness falls under the same basket as success. To everyone, greatness, I would say, means a different thing, and excellence. So like, the greatness of Kobe or Michael Jordan or other spheres of Warren Buffett or even Tony Robbins or anyone in their respective field. But the first thing that I want to define is greatness or excellence, is it a variable definition based on an individual, same as just the word success, or is there clearly that is greatness, that is excellence? And probably just a quick kind of round the table, do we put it in that same basket or not? Hato, going to go right around.
Go, Michael.
I was going to say, I think greatness is when somebody expresses their potential. Everybody has potential to be something, and I think people that push the limits and don't care what people think and sort of go through pain, suffering to get to a point are great. So I think it's the potential that you have. And I don't think enough of us, including myself, probably push that part, and sort of, because it's all in us. Like it really is. Greatness is in everybody, but it's how do you tap into that? How do you get to that stage? And you have to go through, not giving a shit what people think about you. I mean, to me, and this is going to sound really funny, Kanye West, to me, is one of the greatest.
That is funny.
Is one of the great, because he doesn't give a shit what people think, and he breaks the norms of what he should be defined as an entertainer and his creative genius as well.
So would you say that? So I guess, like, we like to define some things. Greatness is not necessarily, the definition of it is not variable, but what it looks like is for each individual.
Of an extent, amount, or intensity considerably above average. That's the definition.
Say it again.
Of an extent, amount, or intensity considerably above average.
Intensity.
Which poses an interesting question: is what is average?
Yeah. What is intensity?
Because then,
a lot of
within a certain room, you could be above that average, but is that room and their average significantly higher? So I might be great playing Z grade basketball, but I'm shit playing SBL. No, so context is important.
Context.
Matt?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's definitely personal. We all pick words for the year, and mine is actually greatness, if you recall. And the way I defined that was, and actually I think a lot of that came from some stuff that I'd seen around Kobe and Mamba mentality and greatness, and I've been a big Kobe fan for a long time, and that's actually where I picked up the word. But I didn't just give myself a word for the year as being greatness that couldn't be defined. So I set effectively I think it was about 10 to 12 KPIs of what I just would consider what a great year looked like. So, but then there's a different way that you could approach greatness for your life and other things. But I wanted to build a list, and there's some health variables.
But that's relevant to you, which is better than looking external.
It's what it meant to me, and so I know that I can reflect on that in 12 months, and I believe I can achieve all of it. And I want to then give myself the ability to achieve those KPIs, and some are easier than others, but achieve those KPIs and look back and go, no, I had a great year, and that makes a lot of sense for me. And for me, that's my greatness, and that's what my 2019 will be. So subjective in a lot of ways, but do understand that definition and agree, because some of the things I've put down there as KPIs are what would be considered well above average for those things. Financial or other areas are clearly, we can clearly define what average would look like.
Can financial come into the equation with greatness? Is that part
Well,
of...
if you're looking at being substantially higher than the average, and if you can pull out an average income, then what I've targeted there is substantially higher. So if I achieve
extent, amount, or intensity considerably above average. So yeah, it can.
So you can apply it really to any
anything.
factor of your life, I suppose.
Yeah. Jacob.
Yeah. And I guess that definition speaks to an absolute or a global definition of greatness as saying that this person or this achievement relative to an average is great. I believe there's also individual greatness. Like Michael said, I define it as greatness is when achievement equals or exceeds potential, where everyone has, whether you believe it's born or developed.
But define potential, because it
How
seems
do
to be
you
a bit
exceed your
ambiguous.
potential?
I guess you can't. Well, equals potential even, but like everyone.
Potential is something, is an energy inside you or something inside you that
But
be expressed.
do you ever
in some way.
understand or fully comprehend what your potential is? So if it's not conceivable, yes, it exists. Then how is it measurable?
Well, I think that's putting yourself
It's
in
not measurable.
So then you can't define greatness.
That's the end of the show.
We're done.
Well,
I've dropped
you can't
them on.
define greatness
No, we've gotta
from
start there.
trying to measure your potential.
So you're exactly right. That's what you're trying to get at. So that,
Yeah.
that equation's slightly flawed in my opinion.
But as in your ability to do better than you did yesterday, then, like we
Does
all
that make
have,
you great?
maybe. Again, it's maybe a
So,
personal thing.
so yeah, okay. So
Am I greater today
All
than
right,
I was
so-
yesterday?
Yep. We're
Yeah.
now on to Conrad. Your thoughts on defining what is greatness
I've just gone to the textbook definition.
to you, though.
But to me, that's what I'm trying to play with, because I try not to be too abstract in too many ways, because again, if we're all sitting around this table and we want to talk about being above average, well, what is the playing field we're playing with?
That's the same thing? Could you group success and greatness similarly, because they're an evaluation of what you deem them as? Because like my success is different to you, Conrad. My value of greatness is probably very different to you.
But I think when you come to, say, a specific field or endeavor, then I think greatness is different to individual success.
It's measurable, isn't
It's
it?
measurable. I
I
think it's measurable.
I think greatness has to be measurable.
It's
Success
measurable
is
on-
kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know whether success is, and this is why I always challenge success. But again, I think both definitions will always depend upon the context in which you're using them.
Yeah.
In like,
I
this
think
is
I've got
I
that
think
word
where it's
right, not
difficult for
perspective.
us, because everyone in this room largely has a business related business and then potentially philanthropy and other related sort of goals for their life. When you're talking about, say, Kobe or other athletes, athletes in particular have like a very defined level. Like if I'm talking Kobe, well, there's clearly only a couple of leagues in the world, really only one, but let's just say there's a couple of leagues in the world that make sense if you want to be considered great. And then you want to basically dominate the NBA to be considered great. When you're
But you could be you
can be in a business
at the
context.
global level you're talking about.
Like,
So
if you wanted to consider yourself, and then at a global level. So
Yeah.
there's clearly stages all the way up where you could, and
Yeah,
you
'cause
might consider, okay, I'm a great basketballer in Australia, I'm
Yeah.
a great basketballer in WA, and
Regional
that's
goats.
that's your choice all the way through. In business, it's slightly different. There's less chances for clear measure, so to speak. There's obviously financial measure, there's impact measure, there's a lot of different things, and then you have to choose, I guess, in which pool or community that you want to, I guess, compare or base yourself on as a benchmark.
I feel like, that's kind of pick a bit of a respective area that you want to achieve greatness in. But I feel like it's going. I like the idea of where Jacob and you, Mike, you both started with is this potential, like untapped potential, like greatness and excellence.
Man.
Well, we all have potential. I agree with that too. We all have.
What is potential?
Well, we don't also know, but I think that's the point of, like, when you look at some of these videos and the philosophy point of it is majority of humans don't start to pursue their greatness because they fear of stepping outside their comfort zone. And the more you tap into your potential,
so is that what you're talking about then? More so about being uncomfortable in the pursuit of
well, that's what the philosophers started to essentially way back started to define it to, is that the majority actually fear life more than they fear death. And like life is to step out and start to pursue your untapped potential.
Because courage was always something that they acknowledged in people that achieved what they believed greatness, right? When they killed the dragon or defeated the army.
Because we prefer conformity and comfort more than the desire to be great. And I guess, do we have a responsibility to be great? And I guess it also stems to the other question I had is like, why do only a few ever really achieve greatness in their respective areas?
I think that's easy. I think that's because largely fear is the gatekeeper to greatness.
Yeah, it's hard to take a risk.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with Dave Clare, a mutual friend of all of ours.
Hi, Dave.
And hi, Dave. And he pulled up mentioned a quote to me, and it's by a lady called Jen Sincero, I think her name is, and she's written a book called You're a Badass.
Has she got a blog as well?
I'm sure she does. But basically the quote, and I really just thought it was a great way to put it, is that, we often don't decide to succeed. We try to succeed and we only then make a decision at the point when we're deciding to quit because it got a little too hard. We never really decided that we were going to do whatever it took to succeed. We start along the path.
Put Steve Jobs in that picture.
Okay.
I don't believe that fits that story.
You don't think that many people just sort of try and never...
I don't believe Jobs... Yes, Jobs tried, but I don't believe... He had one overarching goal, and that was to put a computer in front of every man.
No, exactly. What's wrong with that? I mean,
but I don't believe...
to him, he made a decision to do that no matter what.
But that didn't come from a failure. That came from a vision.
No, that's exactly what... I mean, if I just put that again, so we don't make a decision often to succeed. Jobs did.
Yeah.
Right? We try to succeed and only make a decision to quit.
Or did he decide just to enable humanity?
Yeah, but that's deciding that he was going to fulfill a vision. That is what I'm saying. I think you're arguing the same point rather than against it. What we often do is say we're going to set out to do something, but never really decide that we're going to do whatever it takes to get there. It gets a little hard, and we only make a firm decision when we're choosing to walk away.
But again, he didn't walk away, right?
Well, that's where the greatness comes from, because he didn't walk away. He pushed through. He kept
pushing through.
Okay.
Found a way. His vision, what it's saying is his vision...
I'm hearing that wrong.
His vision was strong enough to push through. What I'm saying is people only sort of half-heartedly commit. And then when they only make a firm decision to stop because it got a little hard. So rather than firmly committing...
And a half-hearted approach cannot create greatness.
It doesn't.
No, it can't.
Because you haven't got a strong enough will.
Right?
Yeah, it's impossible.
So this is what I'm saying. On average, this is what people are doing. And this is why we have the failure we have in business and everything else.
Why is it important to pursue, say, greatness or excellence? Why do we as humans put such comes back to, I guess, a couple episodes ago, can you just live a calm and modest life and be happy? Like, is it important to pursue greatness?
Well, I think you had the question there, can we be happy without it? And the answer is, in my opinion, yes, because happiness is being content, whereas greatness is the pursuit of something greater than the average. So, yeah, you can be happy without greatness, in my opinion.
So which means they're not great then?
You'd have to be, because there's far more... The majority aren't greatness. Aren't.
But the majority aren't happy either.
Dum-dum.
It's a self-awareness piece.
Of course it is. I mean, and you're largely playing with self-awareness here anyway, right?
Yes.
It's just what it is. The more you become aware of again, how you define and are using words and what your actions are aligning to and outcomes that you're chasing. So it's a largely self-awareness piece, because that's the only place that you're playing this game from. You yourself have to be aware of the measures that you're having to define your greatness. I think that's important. Kobe Bryant decided that the greatest player on the planet that he wanted to model was Michael Jordan. And he went about doing that. And there's a lot of video around that will show you move over move, Kobe over Jordan, that they're almost identical. Okay, but he modelled his greatness on who he believed to be the greatest player at the time. And we've all done that to certain levels in business or in sport or even in our lives, depending upon what we define as greatness or what is the behaviour that we want.
We talked on one of the very, very, very original podcasts a long, long time ago, a Nietzschean thought on the...
Did you say Nietzschean?
But the Nietzschean, that's the...
Is that a thing?
The overall Nietzschean...
Is that a thing?
Yeah,
Nietzschean?
well, it is now.
It's been said here. It is now. Wiki it.
Copyright Michael Duncan.
Nietzschean.
Is the camel, the lion, the child progression of life. Sort of, you either stay in the herd, do what society tells you to do, or you push yourself. You step outside, you question initially. You accept that if you take risks, if you push your limits, you're going to move forward in life, and then you end up as the child, as the person that questions everything and is at play in life. Creativity is a huge part of this, I think, in greatness. I think is pushing your levels of creativity, is becoming that ultimate person who, we're all very constrained in what we do on a day-to-day basis, or what we see as goals for ourselves. I think it's really important to, and I mean, I'm guilty of it as well, is like everything is there for us to take a risk on, but we don't do it.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, I think that's...
Everything is there for us.
And that was interesting, of just like, it just comes back to, for fear of success and stepping out. And the more you put your head up out of the herd, the more an opportunity for it to be cut off. And
fear of success is a not talked about a lot.
No, well, I mean, it's this, right? It's the fear of life. Like,
fear of life, yeah.
The fear of living
was probably the most succinct definition I've had of it.
Yeah, and it's the fear of...
That right?
Well, Nietzsche goes on, the concept of greatness entails being able to be different. That was it. That was his...
Kanye West.
Yeah. And that's so difficult with FOPO, comparisons, fear of other people's opinions, and all these other... Our natural abilities want to be, connected.
But do you think Kanye is constructed?
No. I think he's actually... he's got different brain chemistry, Kanye West. I mean, I love his music. He is one of the most creative producers of music you've probably got in the modern age.
Yeah, but
again, a lot of people hate him.
There's
a lot of hate towards him.
But given the following he has he not constructed that to appeal to his following?
In a way, he's constructed who he is. We all have. But he is... he doesn't give a shit like what people think. He just pushes the boundaries, which is, I think, where you have to get... The only way to get to greatness is if you push these boundaries. And he's done it. And people shun him because of that. I mean, a lot of the time with greatness is that somebody gets to that level, they're looked down upon, I suppose, or because a lot of us are below these people. So I think it's an interesting psychology when...
Yeah, I don't know whether we're below anyone. I mean, he's just on a different tangent doing his own thing. I mean, I wouldn't put myself above or below anyone, but...
I'm saying it as a general rule in society, when people rise, they're easily taken down. The head is above the water. It's a much easier target to
But I
kind
think
of
the
pull
verbiage
back.
is interesting too, mate. Rising compared to what? Compared to the average? And what's the average?
Well, I think as a whole, Western society's average is not pushing limits. We're quite happy to be
Man, I think we're at a rate of change faster than anything else history has ever seen.
We are.
And
on a multitude of levels. I think
Justin asked the question, do we have a responsibility as human beings to be great? And I think biologically human beings are unique in that we are the most malleable kind of biologically beings. If you've ever seen a giraffe, newborn, within its first 5 minutes is already standing up, walking
only
and
a couple
moving.
of times. But.
In that...
It's got a purple tongue.
They're hardwired biologically with just almost like pre-programmed like software on a computer to say this is what a giraffe does.
But that's every animal, right?
And they have no potential to exceed that. Human beings have very limited initial programming, but a huge capacity to add additional kind of programs to it. And that's why we succeed relative to other animals, and we've got the ability of a newborn, as Travis and anyone here will know, fucking hopeless.
Yeah,
they
but
need
hang
us.
on.
However-
Is that not environmental? Are we not a product of our environment? And you know, we don't have to be born and know that our enemies are going to fucking eat us if we go the other direction. I mean, it's a very harsh thing to say that human beings aren't born like a fucking giraffe. We don't need to be born like a giraffe, but are we born to be the best human being possible? I believe we are.
Yeah, and that's kind of where like a little bit of where I want to go is like, I know obviously a few of us, are we all trying to pursue greatness, and do we get a little bit, I guess, maybe not frustrated, but agitated whether we're going to achieve our potential or not? And I guess you can't define potential, but you know, because that's what greatness is really, is like giving it your all, you know, to commitment to whatever it is in that field.
It's
Because are you on a pursuit for greatness, Conrad?
I want to leave the planet being the best version of myself, whatever that looks like, smells like, feels like. You know, and I think the only way you can do that is look at yourself in a reflective way and be happy or sad in relation to what you're trying to move towards.
Yeah. Do you feel like that you're standing out on your own a lot more than what you would have done, say in previous, like say back
1,000 times, yeah.
10, 20 years ago?
Easily.
Yeah.
Look, you taught me 20 years ago, I was trying to fit in.
What was there a moment, or was it just a thing that you've just habits?
It was understanding that fitting in was playing to the masses, and that when I started looking at the behaviours and I've been studying, and I say studying, literally studying successful people since I was about 15, 16 years of age in every format. But I didn't understand till probably my mid-30s. I didn't understand. I didn't grasp till my mid-30s that it was decisions that made people different, not anything else. And what decisions did I have to make to allow me to stand out? You know, so you guys know that I wear different colour clothes. Being okay wearing those things and allowing people to ridicule you. Whereas, you know, growing up when I was in my younger years, you know, standing out, being skinny, being black, being whatever, I shunned away from. So it's embracing who you are. That's, you know, being good with who I am. Then allowing myself to become who I wanted to become, or I needed to become.
And if we define greatness as either living up to potential or being the best version of who you can be, do we believe that human potential is limitless, either individually or globally or collectively, or do we believe potential is something that's capped and you just live into?
No, we're given the exponential growth we've seen come from humanity, you'd be a numpty to think it's limited.
So say like you grab,
particularly from a collective perspective.
yeah, like from birth, if I was trained and developed to be a basketball player, my potential, given the height I would reach, the abilities I would be able to achieve, no matter how much nurture there is, would nature override that and limit me from greatness, say an NBA championship or even being drafted?
No,
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Opportunity might.
Yeah, but you have to bring something else to the table.
Opportunity might, but I don't believe
level.
your stature, or you know, as long as you can play the game.
Say you're born with no arms.
Now
yeah,
you've
yeah,
changed that
definitely.
dramatically,
All right,
mate.
so all right, now what I'm super curious about is so
You're born with no heart. Can I live?
I almost feel like,
Man.
Conrad, wearing the different clothes is almost like a tool to help you obviously not
Attract a mate.
attract a mate, but to obviously
Like a peacock.
deal with people's opinions. But what is holding, if everyone here in somewhat acknowledges that there is potential, whatever that may be, what is holding you back from pursuing greatness? Like Matt, you picked greatness as a word this year. Why this year, and what's been holding you back from greatness? Is it the fear of life, as the philosophers put it?
Yeah. Look, there's two ways to look at that. One, I achieve a lot of things every year, but I've never put enough and a wide enough range of KPIs together to look back and just go clearly. There's a defined year that was great, and that's one thing that I wanted to do.
The year you're
And
born.
why is that important to you? Why is greatness important to you?
Because I think when you're an achiever, sometimes it's hard to just give yourself credit for what's been done and you without just having moved on to the next thing. And I think one thing I lack doing is adequately rewarding myself for what has been achieved. And I think that was a big part of why I put this year together and why I termed it greatness, and why I've set myself very specific set of KPIs, some easy, some hard, some finance, some health, some relationships, some whatever. To put it into perspective, there was how many mini break holidays I had with the family. Like there's a series of things. It's not all finance, and it's not all career driven. It's not all it's quite a reasonable pie of activities, and that's why I wanted to be able to reflect back and just go, no, rather than just go, hey, it was a good year, or yeah, it was good, but I wanted to go, look, this is what I deem a great year ahead of time, and I'm going to go set myself about achieving.
And is there one particular thing that is holding you back from achieving it?
The same that we talked about. It's there is elements of the fear of success. I mean, the last 2 years roughly, I've started to podcast and put a lot more content out on social media and other areas, and that is challenging, and we all know it because it is challenging, and this has been a good environment because we get to do it as a collective group. But as you do more and more of it, sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, but you're stepping out and being and doing something different from what people might know you as or perceive you as, and there's always challenges in that, I find. And so the more I strive to be myself and present myself and be different, those challenges always present to me.
I mean, putting yourself out there on social over the last 2 years has been really impressive. What would you say to someone to build up that courage, because that would have taken a lot of courage to do that,
Huge
and that's a
amount of
step towards, I guess, being great in the area that you want to be. What would you say to someone who's like,
even a couple of years in, putting content out on a regular basis, I'm still as uncomfortable about it as I was 2 years ago. And it's not that I can do it, and I regularly do it, but you still don't necessarily sit there without that imposter syndrome, even at where I'm at. And
because on this table, you're actually the most great in putting out content.
Sure,
Do you know?
I would be. I'm putting out more content than anyone on
Is
this
that-
table.
But you would have had to become good with who you are, right? Or are you just selling shit?
No, I'm not selling shit. I use it as a tool to get better at who I am and to be more and more comfortable with sharing it and being honest with myself. So I
But
use
you
it.
must believe that you can actually, through your leadership and you putting yourself first, that you can lead others through.
No, exactly, and
So
that's
then-
why I do it.
So then
Because I believe,
you're okay with who you are.
and I believe I have that responsibility. To go back to one of the other questions as well, I just do. I believe I have that responsibility to share, and it's what drives me through it, because I'm saying I still don't love putting it out all the time. Sometimes I'll listen to it ahead of time. Sometimes I'll just put stuff out, and my team will work to put it out, and I'll watch it and cringe, or I'll listen and cringe. But I feel like I have that purpose to do so, and I'll continue to keep putting it out accordingly.
I would challenge you a little bit with that. If we're really talking about greatness, when we're looking at the Greeks, the Egyptians, whoever it is, putting a podcast out and doing it regularly, is that really greatness? I mean, on your, or whatever your KPI is on greatness, if you reach that, and that's I don't like the KPI version of greatness, because I don't think it can be measured by KPIs. Greatness is something that becomes bigger than the KPI or bigger than the thing. To me,
What's it? Do you measure greatness by worldwide, Australian-wide, statewide, leaderable-wide?
I measure greatness by, I feel like I've got the
match-wide.
potential to create some of it may be media, some of it may be other things in my lifetime. And I believe that if I don't do this on a regular basis and get better and better at it, then I've got no chance for that to come out.
So what's
I
the
don't
next
think the
level
first
you need to
podcast
get through?
Anybody puts out is going to be any good. And maybe you're not 300 in, or maybe you're not 3,000 in. Or I might write one blog when I'm 74 after all the experience that I've had putting content out, for example, and let's say I do it all the way till I'm 74, and then that one piece of content has an impact. Maybe that's what it is. But in my greatness is in the pursuit and the continuance of doing what I believe I need to do. What I think you need to honor is where you're at now and do the best you can at what you're doing right now. Even if you've got a job that you think is shit, do that job really well. And I think it's honoring that process. It's why I defined this word. You don't like to define that word? Fine. It doesn't bother me. But I've used that word, I've defined it as a set of KPIs, and that's what I consider my 2019 is, to continue along my path towards me being the greatest version of me. And it's only the greatest version of me. If my best podcast episode is shit, I've still done the best that I can put together. And that's my approach to it. If you want to measure it on, like, the best podcast in the world ever produced by someone isn't the one with the most listens.
Well, it's the one that's happening right now.
It could
right
be.
now.
Maybe it is. Maybe
just-
my greatness in podcasting is with you. It's not
I was just
about
challenge you a little bit to know
I
if you're at a level now where you know that there's more you could be doing, like honestly more that you could be
Always.
doing.
But there's always more, Mike.
Always
I think, and I'm not trying to defend you here, Matty.
But I don't mind if you do.
I
don't need it, but-
I'm just trying to. I'm trying to observe the behaviour. So I talk about leadership, and I talk about staying uncomfortable and leading from a place of example or a place of words. But the words and actions leaders, those that encompass both sides of that, to me are the greatest leaders that the world has ever seen. And I think, without putting you on the pedestal of great leaders, your actions and words are now much more aligned this year, more so than any other year, than towards achieving great outcomes.
Yep.
And I have 2 questions or challenges as well.
Can I get paid for that?
One,
Sure.
Cash for
is
comments.
You mentioned that
Comments.
you mentioned you've had trouble in the past recognizing your achievements, and I guess that kind of recognizing how far you've come. And I think, like, gratitude is obviously a great way to do that. Yet your word for the year is greatness, which is by nature putting something ahead that you haven't reached. It's kind of pursuing something that's beyond you rather than recognizing the internal achievements. So that was question 1. And I will touch on that first.
So I'm putting greatness ahead. Well, I'm setting a series of KPIs for a year. So that's a plan.
Both personal and professional, right?
Yeah, personal and professional. So that's a plan. I mean, there's elements of self-care and all that within those KPIs as well, involving meditation and other things. So there's elements of that in there, which is where I guess a lot of my gratitude practice and that comes from.
Well, I think greatness is Conrad, you might be able to echo this from the research of successful people, but greatness just comes through a series of, like Ray Allen from the Letters that we listened to a couple episodes ago. It's a series of boring old habits, and you've got to be comfortable with doing the boring old shit all day, every day, and being willing to be essentially cut out of the herd or exiled or anything to achieve.
Stand on your own.
Something that you believe to be either your passion, your purpose, your contribution to whatever it may be, and believe that wholeheartedly. And I think there's almost an element of, like, whether you want to call that the journey of life, or whatever it is continue to search for that. Because with the philosophers started to try to define what makes humans different from all other animals. And Richard Taylor went on to make a claim that our biggest unique gift is that we have creativity, and that he believed that humans, the best pursuit you can do is pursue greatness and creativity, and that would be deemed as a successful life. However, not everyone is passionate in creative areas per se, art, music, etc. So what he said was that is to pursue, every human should pursue, or maybe not using the word should, but essentially, I'm paraphrasing here, is to pursue greatness in oneself, to create oneself that you are your own judge, and essentially love who you are, a sense of pride. So essentially full circle that, we have a sense of that if you don't have become great in a sort of passion or pursue greatness in a passion, pursue greatness in oneself and pursue greatness in self-love, essentially.
There's a great book, great book, that's called The Science of Being Great, written back in 1910 by an author known as Wallace D. Wattles.
I was going to say, it's Wallace Wattles, right?
He's got a series of The Science of books. I think the biggest selling one was The Science of Getting Rich. It's actually if you ever get a chance to read them, they're phenomenal reading. Written back in 1910, all three of them. There's two quotes out of that book that stay with me, and I've journaled on many times. The first one is, the very best thing you can do for the whole world is to make the most of yourself. All right, so when you look at that in The Science of Greatness, I think it's again understanding what you've done and challenging yourself to do more, whatever that is. All right.
And I think to finish off, like,
hang on, I've got one more quote.
Okay.
Can I go this other quote, because this is an interesting one. Sorry, Justin. There are three.
It's gold. Go for it.
There are three motives for which we live. We live for the body, we live for the mind, we live for the soul. No one of these is better or holier than the other. All are alike desirable, and no one of the three, body, mind, or soul, can live fully if either of the others is cut short of a full life and expression.
You brought the Trinity into it.
Oh, geez, you love that, don't you? Now you can go for it, Justin.
The spirit. Thanks. Appreciate it. Look, I think it was, to look into this a little bit deeper was very beneficial for me. It's something that I've obviously echoed and we've talked about a bit. And upon reflection, I'm definitely in a bit of a space of the fear of life sometimes gets in the way, and you've just got to keep pursuing, find the courage, and come to happiness, even the courage to be happy, the courage to pursue your passion, and the courage to be ridiculed, hated, exiled, stand out will put you on the path for greatness. If you look at all the people who've achieved greatness, they've all had to be out on their own.
No one's wanted to fit in.
And we'll leave it at that. Peace.
You can find us on.
Oh, yes. That is my responsibility on hosting the podcast. You can find us on all podcast platforms, iTunes, Spotify. This other platform is new to me.
Stitcher. That's on our website.
SoundCloud.
Is it? There you go. SoundCloud.
Are we on SoundCloud?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've been there
I've
since
wanted
the
to be on
start.
SoundCloud for a long time. I reckon some great work happens on SoundCloud.
Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and anyone who would like us to even discuss a topic that you may have, please hit us up, message any of us. We'd love to pull it apart.
Or put it together.
And make it
Finally,
simple.
I stole somebody else's one.
We'll leave it there. Thank you.
See ya.
Ciao.
Champagne.